Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. If you are new, hello there. Welcome. So glad you're here. My name is Korra, and I share on here all sorts of information about how to live your best life and how I'm out there trying to live my own best life. And travel is one of my favorite ways to do that. So come along for a 2-week trip to the Mediterranean. Oh, and a fun little plot twist of this trip is that I am 18 and then eventually 20 weeks pregnant during this trip. And yes, I am going on a cruise with my husband's family while very much so pregnant and still struggling with morning sickness. So it was definitely an adventure. So stay tuned. We're going to go through it all. The initial travel days were a little bit rougher than I had hoped for. I had struggled a lot with specifically the landing of the plane. Thankfully, we only had one layover, so I only had to do this twice. And when we got to our hotel in Athens, I crashed for a few hours before my husband and I went to dinner. And then the next day, we spent some time exploring in Athens with his family. Then the following day, it was time to actually head to the port for the main adventure of this trip, which was a 9-night Mediterranean cruise. Getting it to the port was incredibly easy from Athens. We took a taxi. It was maybe 30-ish minutes. And then getting onto the actual cruise ship was the easiest onboarding experience I've ever had. Took maybe 15 minutes from our taxi arriving to when we got there. That first day we just explored the boat, and then the next day we were beginning our trip. Stop number one was Chania, I believe. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Crete. My husband and I last year went to Greece and spent a few days in Heraklion, and it was one of our favorite stops. So we were really, really excited to go back to Crete. The people, the culture, the vibes are just so warm and friendly. And oh my gosh, it was so beautiful there. It was so sad that we didn't get more time to explore there. That's kind of the general theme that you're going to hear from me from this is that as much as it was really cool to experience so many different places via cruise ship, I definitely felt like a lot of times it was lacking that I didn't get to experience as much of the culture as I would have wanted to. Regardless, we know for a fact that we want to go back to Crete so badly again. All right, moving ahead to the next port, which was Santorini. We had opted not to go to Santorini or Mykonos, both of which we go to on this cruise, last time when we were in Greece, due to everything we've heard about how tourist busy it is, even though both are absolutely gorgeous islands. And the rumors did not lie. Okay, we waited for almost 2 hours just to get off of our ship to get to the port, and then about an hour and change in line for the cable car. The donkey path was closed, which normally apparently takes a solid 15-20% of the population waiting in that line. So maybe that would have helped a little bit there. And we didn't have that. Also, honestly, even at 18 weeks pregnant, man, I would have walked up those stairs rather than wait in that line. Regardless, we did have an amazing time. My father-in-law booked a private tour, so it was just us and our tour guide who was native to Santorini and had so many interesting facts, really let us embrace the culture while we were there, and it was definitely a really cool excursion. The Red Rock beaches did not disappoint. They are absolutely stunning. I've seen red beaches before, but never quite like this. We didn't actually get to go spend time at the beach. We just saw it from this upper viewpoint, but it was still incredibly cool. And if I ever had the opportunity to go back to Santorini, I would definitely want to do a beach day there. And then it was time to go and explore and find the perfect spot to see the sunsets. Obviously, that is what Santorini is known for, is for their absolutely gorgeous sunsets. And even though it was a smidge cloudy, it did not disappoint, and it was honestly everything I hoped it would be. And then the next day was a really, really exciting one because it was the only country I was crossing off my list on this trip, and it was Turkey. I've never been to Turkey before, neither had anybody else that I was traveling with, so we were all really excited to just see a bit of a different cultural experience. And we got to explore the ancient city of Ephesus, the ruins, which were so cool, which was insane. And he kept telling us about how they keep finding more historic sites, like where the buses are parked now is actually the stadium where they used to do chariot games and things like that. Which is crazy. So they're moving that further so they can start excavating that. I am so excited to go back one day with my baby girl and see all the new things that they have found. It was insanely cool, honestly. I love history, and seeing everything there was just incredible. The only thing is, I wish that we would have had more time, again, to experience some of the actual culture of Turkey. We got to see a lot of major history points, and as you'll see in a second, we also went to like a little rug seminar thing, which was a little bit, it was salesy. It was definitely put on to sell you rugs, okay? But it was still cool to see, but I wish we would have gotten time to actually eat there and spend time exploring. We did have a little break, a little sea day in the middle here, and then the next stop was Mykonos. Again, a really common, popular, of course, tourist destination, especially if you're young and you're gonna go partying, which was obviously not the case for me. Well, very much so pregnant, and also I'm 29. That life is in the past, guys. But Mykonos was honestly so stunning. I feel like I'd only really heard about like the party culture and some of the food elements, but I hadn't heard much about the scenery, and it did not disappoint. It was the beautiful white buildings, the churches were stunning, the water amazing. That is a clip of my husband and mother-in-law actually touching the water. My husband touched the water every single place that we went. It's his thing, who knows? But I was super impressed and would actually want to go back to Mykonos in like a relaxing way potentially during off season, which was key. This we were also there during off season. But we stumbled upon this ancient church, like ruins that we got to just walk through and explore. Also, I will say that the shopping was some of the best shopping that we experienced on any of the islands. It was a little bit more expensive than some of the other ones, but they had a lot more like one-off shops. And then we also went to this pastry spot that my in-laws had found online from some guy that they've been watching on YouTube. And holy cow, it was phenomenal. And after we were stuffed filled with pastries, we had to go see the windmills, which the photographer in me was absolutely obsessed with. They were so pretty and just the angles and everything. Ugh, amazing. And they had a bunch of information about how they're restoring them. Fun fact, when we were in Greece last time in on the island of Paros, I believe it was. Yeah, we stayed in like our hotel was in a refurbished windmill, which was really cool. We enjoyed another relaxing sea day. Normally, I am a little bit of a sea day hater. However, while pregnant, those days were definitely necessary to help me recharge. But then it was time to head to Kavala, which I was really excited to go to. It's in an actual city in like mainland northern Greece, which we did not get an opportunity to go to northern Greece at all last time. And it just feels a lot different, honestly, than the islands and Athens. And it's so cool to like kind of get the better picture of a country by going to different parts of it. Kavala and the area surrounding it have a ton of insane history as a place that kind of connected Europe and the Middle East for, you know, thousands of years. We got to explore the archaeological site of Philippi. I hope I'm saying that right, but I'm probably saying it wrong. And which was really cool. It was definitely smaller than the site of Ephesus, but the history was obviously just as cool. We got to actually walk on the oldest road in the world, which amazing, incredible. They are also still excavating new parts as they discover them and kind of figure out and piece the history together. This is also where the Apostle Paul was like held prisoner for, I think, like 72 hours. At some point in here, there's a clip of us kind of standing in it. And yes, my also history loving husband was obsessed with walking on this ancient road, which was really cute. Also, I do not speak Latin. I have never been like trained or taken any courses on Latin, but every single time I go to historical sites like this, I get this overwhelming urge to go and have a better understanding of Latin so that I can like better understand historical sites. Will that ever actually happen? Who knows? Maybe that'll be a really good retirement project, okay? Which I say as a soon to be mother who is 29 years old, but one day, guys, one day. Oh, and I was absolutely obsessed with this. So on the ground there was original like markings from a game that kids used to play, which I thought was so fun. Like I love any kind of connection to history that makes it like that reminder that as much as the world has changed exponentially, there is still truths and realities that are always going to be the same that connect us. And after Philippi, we had one more historic spot on this like booked excursion, and that was probably the one that I was the most excited about for the entire trip. We got to go to where the first baptism of a woman, at least recorded, ever happened, which like we won't get into any conversation on religion here. It is just a really cool, like sentimental place, regardless, I feel like, of your beliefs, if you're a woman, because it's just like this connection to a woman who did something that she wasn't really supposed to do. And you know what? More power to her. Awesome. And I was able to dip my hand in the actual water of the river that she was baptized in, supposedly, and while pregnant with my daughter, it was really sweet and sentimental. And here is the actual video that my husband captured of me reaching in, and I was able to like get in a little bit in splash, but everyone that I was with was like, "Oh, you need to like be more in it." So there's pictures that I did like lay down as flat as I could get without like squishing baby girl, and it was a little bit risky there. I probably shouldn't have done that. And then here's my husband having way more success doing it with ease and going down to a much more logical place. The church that was on site here was like a replica of one that was obviously previously there. That's why it looks so stunning and perfect, just because it's only like 80 years old or something like that. But it was absolutely gorgeous to still see. And then after that, we decided to do a little exploring on our own of Kavala. We went to this restaurant that was called like the Canadian or some Canadian Tavern. And it was a gentleman whose family had immigrated to Canada, and then him and his immediate family ended up immigrating back to Greece, which was just like a cool story to hear. The food was fantastic. And then my father in law really wanted to go up to the top of this fortress. So we made that hike up there. Yeah, me, very pregnant. I did it. Be proud, be very proud. Heights thankfully do not bother me, or that would have been a little bit rough. Though I did not participate in some of this a little bit sketchier ladders and such because, we're prioritizing baby safety here. But the view from up top was absolutely worth climbing up this tower, though it was pretty hysterical because it was barely wide enough for one modern day human. But then you get to the top and you see those views, and it's always worth it. Climb to the top. Anytime you get the opportunity to climb to the top of somewhere in a city where you can look over and see everything, you need to take that opportunity. But at that point, I was absolutely exhausted and ready to get some food. And just like that, it was our final port day. This last, like, actual port day, there was one more sea day after before we get off the boat. I digress. It was in Thessaloniki, which I had heard a lot of people talk about how it's like the food capital of Greece. And we're going to get more into that in a second, but it absolutely was. Okay. We had like an hour and a half ish to explore some of the historical sites before. We went to, this was called, I believe, the White Tower, the White Castle. And it's obviously like not that white anymore, but it was at one point. And it was really cool. The water was also beautiful to be able to walk along. And then let me tell you something that I experienced in Thessaloniki, unlike anywhere else. Every other corner that you turned, there was an ancient, like historical church. Okay. It was so cool to see. It was also so ingrained in a city that was like hustling and bustling and not as tourist focused as basically anywhere else that we went in Greece, other than maybe Kavala. And that was really cool. It was just like the contrast was amazing. And I know that northern Greece does not get the same level of tourism, but if you have the opportunity, you need to go check out these historical sites and experience the culture. Again, it's different and I love that. And then it was time for a little walking food tour. We had done this through the same company in Athens, and it is absolutely amazing. You go to like tons of different places, and you get little like basically small samples, but it's way more food than you could ever actually want in a city. And you get to experience so many different things. We got to sample these olives, which was a personal favorite of mine as an olive lover, and there was lots of wine and raki and other alcoholic drinks that were sampled as well by those who were able to sample them. And then that was the end of the trip. We had one more sea day and then a travel day back that was very, very frantic. And honestly, I felt like absolute crap in my pregnancy at that point. So there's not a ton of footage from it. But thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you get to go soon. Bye.